administrative action, according to her, that issue is closed.
Chairman, it should not be closed.
It should not be closed, yeah.
Chair, I think let's, for clarity, let me ask, right? When the recommendation that is being requested, right, is because the issue was resolved during the hearing of Senate, but the Senate said the office of the county governor undertakes administrative action against the responsible officer who failed to provide the documents to the auditors at the time of the audit in accordance with this Act etc. That is the recommendation we've been given. The recommendation here is not on documents because the issue of documents was closed during the hearing. That's why I'm saying we're going back to reopen an audit hearing that has already happened. The only issue, despite that issue having been closed, Senate felt that we should take action on the officer who submitted documents late, who caused there to be a query when there shouldn't have been a query in the first place.
Yes.
Okay? So the recommendation here is not on documents because the documents matter was closed.
Now,
the recommendation was on administrative action. So we are reporting on the administrative action. Now we have understood. You have advised us that the administrative action that was taken, we should have taken it back to the auditor also, and then now come back to the Senate, if I understand correctly.
When you're required, for example, to provide documents like a payment plan or payment schedule to the control of budget, we must also be satisfied that that payment plan has followed the template, the format that is required. The auditor must be satisfied that that template was followed. And then for us, we are the ones to resolve. These issues are not resolved by that first report, which requests for implementation of some recommendations. It is never resolved there. It is resolved by Parliament. It is resolved here by this committee. So if we do recommendations to the entity, you will implement the recommendations. We will come back here and find out whether the issues as raised and our recommendations that we made have satisfied the auditors and us as the committee to write off an audit query, to clear or to mark a query as resolved. In fact, what I'm asking the auditor is if the issues were addressed. I'm using the word addressed. If they were addressed, then this committee will decide whether the query has been resolved. Those are two different words. Have you addressed the issues? If they are addressed, then as a committee, when you're writing our report, we would say the query has been resolved and we mark it as resolved. It will not reappear again. Yes, Auditor?
Thank you, Chair. You have well stated. What I wanted to bring to attention to the committee is when we are doing the audit currently, of course, we used to do up to report, but based on the recommendation of the committee, we do what we call follow-up. So the audit phases are now 4. We have the issue of planning, we have the execution, then the reporting aspect which comes to you, and then we make now the follow-up of recommendations. So when we are doing the exit, I know in Muranga we issued what we are calling it circularization of audit committee, SPAC recommendations, where we well put the aspect of what is your take in terms of responses by the client. All the issues which were raised by the committee were on that circularization, which we issued at the exit meeting when we were doing this current audit. So what we were expecting, of course, after we have done that, we will do the audit verification by that team because they have the capacity at that level to be able to check all the issues which were raised in the prior year and be able to say these have been addressed, these have not been addressed. So when we received the letter, we were not given with the documents. We were given only this letter, which are a few pages without the other annexure. So, Chair, I think that is the confusion, and the governor has said very well that maybe it is because of their first time getting recommendation direct from your.
Yeah, this is the first time and even into the future, looking into the future, that is how we would be operating. In fact, by 31st December, all the reports should be in Parliament. Then we'll take 1st January up to 31st March. Would have given us our response. Your responses would have engaged and would have written our report. Then after that, after 60 days, we start following up on the implementation of the recommendations. If you implement the recommendations, then the auditors would mark the issues as addressed. When we meet here the second time, then we'll be marking them resolved. So after that first, we will get all the certificates. All the audit reports will be in Parliament by 31st of December. When we get them, we'll begin engaging the counties up to 31st of March. These are the new timelines that have been given by the courts, and we must adhere to the court rulings. There was a court ruling here in Nairobi about the alcoholic case. I can't remember the case number, but because of that ruling, that's why we're using a new system of operating. That by 31st, we'll get the reports up to by 31st December. Up to 31st March, we'll have engaged the counties, written our reports with recommendations, and then we'll write to the counties, giving them our report and the recommendations. The counties would now work on implementing the recommendations. Then we'll come back here and see how you have implemented them. Then we can mark the issues as resolved or not resolved. So if you're supposed to take administrative action on an officer, at this point, we want to see if you have undertaken administrative action. If you have, and the auditor is satisfied, and we are satisfied, then we mark that issue as resolved. I don't know if you are following that, Governor.
We're clear, Chair.
You want to say something, or you keep going before I go to the next issue?
Chairman, from the discussions we have had, it's coming out clearly that the auditor has not looked at this file. And this is evidenced by the county that they have taken action on the recommendations made by the committee. What the auditor has seen is only the responses, the written response, but not the evidence. So the auditor has not put to test the evidence as required to be able to come to prepare and come before this committee. Thank you, Chairman. And then we may have to make a decision on how we proceed.
And you know, that's why, as a preliminary, before even we call the entity, we ask the auditor, have you engaged with the executive? And they say, yes, we have engaged. To mean that after we do our recommendations, then the entity is implementing the recommendations, there must be some sort of engagement between the auditor and, in this case, the governor. That interaction is supposed to answer to the recommendations or implementation of the recommendations. And then we'll call you back here and look at the status of implementation of the recommendations. It is very clear, and Senator Wambua had already indicated that then if the documents we wanted, like the payment plan to the control of budget, the auditor has not looked at it, then this meeting likely might not, or continuing with it might not be tenable. Because then, if there's no new evidence of implementation of recommendations to the auditor, then how do we move? We'll just be doing the first engagement, and we had engaged Kirinyaga previously. We'll be doing that engagement again. There'll be nothing new that will come up in this meeting. And in fact, I understand your frustration. You're saying, we're just answering the questions that we had answered before. I get what now you are saying. You are supposed to have engaged the auditors after we wrote to you with our recommendations, so that you look at the recommendations and see the best way of answering to them by engaging the auditors. And then with that engagement, then it would lead to this meeting, so that we look at how you implemented our recommendations, and then for us as a committee, we would make a decision whether then the queries are addressed or not, and so we clear them. But as it is now, I'm then wondering how then we would clear Muriuki these queries, unless you are saying now then you rely on the upcoming audit.
Chairman, if you look at the brief